So what is going on, guys? I'm Black Hudson Amazing. Welcome back to another video where today we're going to be looking at some more conspiracy theories within Call of Duty Zombies. If you missed the last video where I took a look at about 4 zombies conspiracies, then I will leave the link to it down in the description. But because this game has been going on since 2008, there are many theories that people have had over the years, many Easter eggs that Treyarch have added into their games causing people to theorize. I've done countless Q&A videos over time answering your guys' questions on these, but let's go ahead and compile a bunch more of them, starting with this one where on a wall in Kino del Toten you can find written in chalk Samantha, Amelia, Abigail. Now, 2 of these names we are familiar with. One of them is still very relevant in our current zombie storyline in the Dark Ether, but Samantha we know as Samantha Maxis. Abigail, we have heard that name. That's Misty's name. Her nickname is Misty, but her actual real name is Abigail Briarton. However, the middle one, Amelia, we've never heard of. But the chances are Samantha, Amelia, Abigail is one person. And my best guess would be, although it's never been confirmed to us, is these are Samantha's middle names. Samantha, her first name, Amelia, Abigail, her 2 middle names, and Maxis being her surname. But that's not the reason why I'm talking about it in today's video. The reason is because ever since we first saw this written on the wall in Kino del Toten, people were theorizing that Amelia Abigail must be someone else. And well, you guessed it, because we know Abigail is Misty's first name, fans were linking the 2 together, saying that Samantha Maxis and Abigail Briarton are sisters. So let's go ahead and see if there's any truth to this. And well, the first big plot hole being that Samantha is German and Abigail Misty Briarton is American. Going even deeper though, we know Samantha's father is Dr. Maxis, we know her mother died during childbirth. As for Misty's family, well, her mother died of an unknown cause, we don't know what happened to her, but her father was killed by zombies. And well, since we know in our storyline, Samantha's father, Dr. Maxis, wasn't killed by zombies, that confirms that they at least don't have the same father. And as for their mothers, if Samantha's died during childbirth and Misty's died of an unknown cause, well, I suppose that unknown cause could be childbirth, but the other big plot hole would be different dates. Samantha was born in 1934. When we see her as a child in World at War maps such as Dirise, she is 11 years old. We don't know her father's age, but just guessing, I would say in Dirise he's about 50 years old. He could be a little bit less, a little bit more, it doesn't really matter, because the first time we see Misty in the map Transit, before she's time travelled, well, that map takes place in the year 2035. Again, we don't know Misty's age, but I would guess just looking at her, she's maybe about 30. So if we look at the time gap between Samantha and Misty, there's 90 years between the 2. Remember, that's before they time travelled. And if Dr. Maxis was about 50 years old in 1945, let's say if Misty was 35 years old in 2035, that means she would have been born around about the year 2000. So if Maxis was her father, he would have been about 100. Yeah, I would say it's pretty much impossible. So we have 3 different things to go off here. The fact that Misty and Samantha are 2 different nationalities. The fact that there's 90 years between the 2. And because of that, Maxis would have had to have been about 100 years old when he had her. And we also know there's a whole different bunch of events that happen in between these 2 years and these events where it's just not possible. So I don't know where that theory came from, but it is a big one. You can find it online, a lot of people saying it. It's absolutely not true, which leaves us with the big question, well, who is Amelia Abigail? During the time that Kino del Toten came out in 2010, just breaking the 4th wall, our transit characters didn't exist. It wasn't in the minds of Treyarch. They weren't thinking about Misty as a character back then, but they must have been thinking about someone if they've added it into the game. There are other theories that maybe Maxis has another daughter that we've just never heard of, or Amelia Abigail are some random cousins or cousin, but the most sensible guess would be these are simply Samantha's middle names. Yes, it's kind of strange that we've never actually heard her ever being called this besides from it written on the wall here. I guess it makes sense you don't really address people using their middle names. At this point in the storyline in Kino del Toten, we know that Maxis split up with his daughter. He sent her off to Call of the Dead Siberia to stay with Richthofen, whilst he stayed in Berlin in Kino del Toten to work on creating the undead army for the Nazis. So perhaps he wrote this on the wall because he missed his daughter whilst he was separated from her. That would be my best guess. This is just Samantha's full name. Samantha, Amelia, Abigail, Maxis. But you'd be surprised that this is still a pretty big conspiracy. For our next conspiracy theory, we are going a little bit more forward in time to Dirise, where if you look up in the sky, you will see meteors floating. Now, I would say there is a more logical, in quotation marks, answer as to why we are seeing these here, but the more conspiracy side of the argument is its relation to China's floating city, or other floating cities in general. I don't know if any of you guys will remember this, but back in 2015, there were images going around the internet of a giant floating city that appeared in the sky in China. It showed a massive skyscrapers towering above the clouds. As you would imagine, when this and other images appeared, the conspiracies come along with it. Is this real? Is it fake? Is it something to do with the government? Is it a mirage? Is there something more sinister going on here? We've all seen those images of ships that appeared to be floating above water. That phenomena is apparently caused by light rays being bent by extremely dense air trapped between alternating layers of warm and cold. So that kind of mirage causes the shapes of distant objects to become distorted. There were loads of people, including the National Geographic, that had their say on this. I'd think eventually, or I'd hope so, debunking these images to be fake. But going back to Dirise, if you look off into the distance in this map, you kind of get that weird same phenomena. The clouds, the skyscrapers rising above them, and then the meteors in the sky being so close to you, gives you that sense that you are in a floating city. But what's really gone on? Well, the more realistic answer is that we know that Dirise takes place after the map Moon, and in Moon we sent 3 rockets from the Moon to the Earth, which destroyed it, leaving it fractured and broken. And after the explosion, all of the fractured pieces that broke away from the Earth began to orbit its atmosphere. And if we look in Black Ops 2's main menu on the lobby screen, we can see that exact thing happening. Kind of similar to Saturn's ring, or actually more so Earth a very long time ago had its own rings for a little amount of time in the grand scheme of things, because of the 3 rockets hitting Earth, causing pieces to break away and then orbit the Earth's atmosphere. As a result of that, we see them in the sky in Dirise. Now, what is a little bit weird, I guess, is on any other Black Ops 2 map after this event on Moon, we don't see this. If you look into the sky on the map's transit or buried, you won't see these rocks, which you'd think you'd perhaps see a few. Granted, Dirise takes place in China, buried is in Angola, Africa, and transit is in America, Hanford. All totally different places on Earth, but still, just in my opinion, it would make sense that you would still see these meteors orbiting the Earth on those maps. Perhaps not as obvious as they are on Dirise, since we are in a skyscraper above the clouds, but still. However, we don't. That, though, is the answer. There's no mystery phenomena going on here. There's no other weird theories such as Dirise taking place on another planet, or these being magical element 115 meteors that float. And this also explains why the buildings in Dirise are destroyed and toppled over. And it explains why we see meteors not only floating, but falling from the sky as well. Some of them, the smaller ones especially, drop out of Earth's orbit and come crashing down to Earth, which has resulted in the destruction of Dirise's skyscrapers. One of the most popular conspiracy theories within Call of Duty Zombies is Transit's Bus Route B, a bus route that we know exists, but isn't a playable area. And that's where the conspiracy side of this comes in. Transit Bus Route B is real, but whether you can get there or more so where it is exactly is a different question. When you spawn into the map in the bus depot, you can see on this sign here we have a map of transit, or Green Run as the map's actually called, and then at the top right hand corner you can see 2 different routes, Route A and Route B. Route A is a part of the route that the transit bus actually takes, with Ted being the driver. We have different times on here, 9:15, 11:30, 2, 4:15, 6:30, and then it says no night services. But it also tells us that a second route called B exists, with 4 different time slots. But the bus in transit only ever follows Route A. So what happened to Bus Route B, and where is it? And I think why this conspiracy was so popular, because during the time when transit was new to us, or even a couple of years after to be honest, everybody was thinking that there must be an Easter egg in transit that allows us to take Bus Route B, that will take us to a different portion of the transit map, because transit is split into smaller sections. The power station, town, diner, farm, all are part of Route A. Route B contains new sections of the map, maybe a new town or other points of interest. There were also theories that if we ever got a transit remake, which we were supposed to get in Zombies Chronicles 2, that Treyarch may have given us Bus Route B on that, but of course that never came to be. You can see around transit though, there are many different parts of the road that are blocked off, access where another bus could have taken for Route B, but after the Earth was destroyed by the rockets, a lot of these roads were blocked off and became inaccessible. But we don't know the exact direction that Bus Route B would have taken. All we know is that it did exist. And quite interestingly, here I believe this is an early concept of BO2's loading screen for transit, but you can see this early version compared to what we have in game looks slightly different, kind of relating back to the other conspiracy theory. We see on this alternate transit loading screen the meteors falling from the sky, just how we did in Dirise. But what's more interesting is the way the bus is facing. It's coming from the direction of the church, and it looks like it's turning towards the bridge, going towards the bus depot. But in transit, this isn't the route that the bus actually takes. It comes from the other direction and then turns right, instead of coming from the church and then turning left. These are from the alpha build of BO2, so like I said, a very early version. Does that mean then early on in Transit's development, were Tryout planning to add in bus route B? And the bus coming from a totally different direction shows that. Of course, that's just a conspiracy theory. It could just be that the bus originally was going to come from this direction before Tryout changed it later on. It was still a part of Route A. At the same time, it could mean absolutely nothing. It was just an early version of one of our loading screens, and Tryout didn't take into consideration the direction the bus was coming from. They didn't think anything of it. The other theories were that bus route B comes from behind the bus depot, because when you spawn in, instead of going out of the main doors, if you turn around and look outside of the window, you can see a road leading out the back. That was another one, but there are loads of alternate roads around Transit that the bus doesn't actually take, so really, any of those could have been a part of bus route B. The main question that everybody wanted answering was, will we ever use it and find out where it would have taken you? And the answer to that is, of course, no. But it was one of my favourite conspiracies. The next big one I want to talk about is the conspiracy of why our characters never turned into zombies. Why the Primus characters, Richtofen, Takio, Nikolai and Dempsey, or their Ultimus version, the Transit characters, Misty, Russman, Stuhling and Malton, any of these celebrity casts, JFK or Michael Rooker, why did none of them turn into zombies? Now, because I've done many Q&A videos, I have given my thoughts on this one before, and because everything in that video is still relevant, there's no need for me to record it again, so you may notice the voices a little bit different, but this is what I had to say for anybody asking that question. Now, this is a very good question. Why don't our Primus and Ultimus crew turn into zombies? All throughout our zombie storyline, they've been exposed to so much Element 115, in fact, probably more than anyone else. Yet them, along with Victus and a load of other characters, don't turn into zombies. So how exactly does it work? Well, the other day I made a video on the first zombie, where we learned that back in 1939 Dirise, when Maxis and Richtofen were doing their first teleportation experiments, they teleported a test subject, and when they returned, their chemical composition was altered, leaving them catatonic and changed. And so using Element 115, Maxis and Richtofen resurrected this person for the first time.
Stand up. Stand up! Good. Look at me. Over here. Good. Now walk forward. Excellent. Further. Keep coming. It's all right. Stay there. Calm down. I order you. Kill it.
And then we go over to Origins in a different dimension and timeline, where some things are slightly altered. We know the situation with Group 935 is different, and how the zombie outbreak started is different, but still on July the 1st, 1917, following the installation of Element 115 powered generators, reports surfaced regarding ancient figures emerging from the dig site. So we learned that back in Origins, Element 115 resurrected dead people that had been laid to rest here hundreds of years ago from the Great War. Again, this is showing us that it's Element 115 that creates the undead. And we also know it was the same with Maxis back in Origins. Richtofen killed him because he believed that he had been affected by Element 115 just like everyone else on the dig site. And so before he could turn into a zombie, Richtofen killed him, removed his brain and put it inside of the Maxis drone. So if there's all this proof that it is the exposure to 115 that turns people into the undead, then as you say in your question, why have our Primus, Ultimus, Victus and other characters in our zombie storyline not turned into zombies? They've been exposed to so much Element 115, probably more than all of these characters that have turned into the undead. They've been exposed to it the most, yet they are still alive? Well, from what we've seen, to me at least, it could be that you have to be dead first in order for 115 to resurrect you. If you're alive and exposed to element 115, it is going to have side effects on you. We know that our Ultimus characters already suffer from things such as memory loss and delusions. Element 115 does have effects on you when you're alive, but it seems that in order for it to turn you into a zombie, you first have to die. So if our Primus and Ultimus crew were to be killed and then exposed by 115, maybe then they would turn into the undead. But as we know, every time our characters are killed in zombies, since they have been trapped in an infinite cycle, Monty resets things and sends them back to the beginning when they are alive again. Our characters may well have died sometime throughout zombies. Possibly they have turned into the undead themselves. It's just because they are stuck in this loop, every time they die, it is reset until they do what they need to do. Some people have also said, well, what happens if you get bit by a zombie or they scratch you? Does that turn you into one of them as well? Well, we know from in-game quotes our characters have been bitten many times. I specifically remember ones from Misty or the transit crew when they get hit, yet they don't turn into the undead. If we look at, let's say, Sophia back in Kino der Toten, we know that she was attacked by one of the zombies, and when Maxis learnt of this, he transferred her brain into a robot. Now, exactly why he would do this is strange because our crew have been bitten and scratched many times by zombies, yet we've seen nothing happen to them. But in Kino der Toten, it happened to Sophia, and Maxis ended up killing her in order to save her and put her inside of a robot. Sophia did say when she was attacked, she began to develop a pattern of high fevers and cold sweats. She said her thoughts were erratic. So what would have happened if she would have continued to live? Maybe she would have died, possibly become exposed to 115 and turned into a zombie, or maybe was she gonna turn into a zombie anyway after being bitten? It's a little bit unclear. And then again, another example is back in Verrucht with Smokey. We know he turned into a zombie. We don't 100% know how, but his friend John Banana did say that undead Smokey was eating him alive, yet John was talking through all of it. So to me, it looks like you have to die and then 115 resurrects you and you become a zombie. If you're alive and 115 infects you, you're gonna have side effects, but you don't turn. And then if you get bitten or scratched, well, that one's a little bit strange because we've seen with some characters they begin to have effects, and then we know it's happened to our Victus, Ultimus and Primus crew, yet we don't see anything major happen after that. And the final conspiracy theory that I want to talk about is Hudson was the zombie we see in Black Ops 1's main menu. When you're sitting in the interrogation chair and you switch from multiplayer to zombies, you see the interrogator behind the glass walk away and then he comes back as a zombie. Did Hudson turn into a zombie? So we know that Jason Hudson was a main character in the Black Ops campaign. He was a member of the US Army and served in the Korean War. However, we know that he was discharged in 1955, where he left the military and was then recruited as a CIA special agent. We know that all throughout the Black Ops campaign, Hudson, along with Weaver, was interrogating Alex Mason, and this came after the death of Steiner, where Hudson realised that Dragovich had brainwashed Mason into understanding the numbers broadcasts, which effectively made Mason a sleeper agent of the Soviets. And so in order to get Mason to spill, they would repeatedly play the number sequences to him. But when Mason would continue to tell them that he doesn't know what they're on about, the duo put Mason through major events of his life, starting from 1961 to present day. And even though Weaver did play a part, Hudson did most of the interrogating, even though he only got few answers out of Mason. And so because of this, we know eventually Weaver gives up and Hudson stays behind in a last-ditch attempt to jog Mason's memory. So it was Hudson and Weaver who we see interrogating Mason in the main menu, whether it's in the campaign section or the zombies section. It is Hudson, or it could be Weaver, behind the glass. And Hudson did eventually die many years later. This is in Black Ops 2. After finding out about Menendez's survival, the US government carried out an invasion on Panama in 1989, also known as Operation False Prophet. However, Hudson didn't participate in the combat, and sometime before the operation started, Menendez managed to capture 10-year-old David Mason, and he used him him against Hudson. David Mason was Alex Mason's son, and so Hudson was forced to relay false information to Mason and Woods, who had only just managed to capture Narija, saying that he had intel on a Nexus target, and the Nexus target was Raul Menendez. And so after hearing this, Mason and Woods made their way through the town, where they eventually split ways. Woods went to the top of a building, where he was given instructions by Hudson to kill the Nexus target, and so that's what he did. However, only after taking the shot did Woods find out that the man he had shot was actually Mason, and that was when the real Menendez revealed himself and shot Woods in both legs. We knew that both Woods and Mason were then captured and taken to Hudson, who was tied up to a chair. Menendez told them that one of them must die, either Hudson, Woods or David, and as we saw at first, of course, Hudson was hesitant, as he would be, mentioning to Woods that he had 2 children, but in the end, Hudson decided to sacrifice himself so that Woods and David could live. And that was when Menendez shot Hudson in the kneecaps and then slit his throat. So in the end, Hudson died. He sacrificed himself. He was a good character. Some people see him as bad. I guess you could call him a badass, but the reason he interrogated Mason was to save him. Not only him, but Mason had information in his head that could also save his country. He was, I guess you could say, trying to help his friend. So that is his story in terms of campaign, but as you know, you could also relate him to zombies, because if you go into the Black Ops main menu, in the zombies section, we know the whole screen suddenly turns red, and then the interrogator behind the glass, like I said, whether that was Hudson or Weaver, it could be the both of them switching around. Since they're using a voice changer, we really don't know. But as soon as you switch to the zombies menu, the interrogator walks away, and then a few seconds later a zombie walks back and starts banging on the glass. Now I believe there is 2 options. Either that is a totally different person, that is neither of the interrogators, and it's some random zombie, or either Hudson or Weaver become the zombie. Exactly who it is, I don't believe we'll ever know. Possibly both of them became infected. But yeah, there we go. That is, I guess, Hudson's story.
So there we go, a bunch of conspiracies within Call of Duty Zombies. Let me know which is your favourite in the comment section below. Are there any others that you would like to see combined into a future video? Any ones that you think are worth revisiting? Maybe we could finally find out the truth, although that's unlikely. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like rating if you've enjoyed the video. Check out the other one, make sure you are subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.